Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Sharing. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Jyoti and I'm your host for today. We are glad to present this webinar on the pertinent topic, humanizing and unifying BFSI's customer experience with digital business communication. Through this webinar, we will be focusing on the communication challenges faced by the BFSI industry during and post COVID-19. Before we begin, I request everyone to please take a moment and go through the guidelines that have been displayed on your screens.
Jyoti, nothing has been displayed.
I hope you all can see these screens that has been displayed for the guidelines. So request if you can be in a good network zone for a seamless experience. I hope everyone can see the slides.
Yeah.
Great. So the first guideline is to check the good network zone for seamless experience. Use of headphones, earphones is advised for better sound clarity. Please park your questions for the Q&A sessions. All queries and questions to be asked posted using the chat box. Please introduce yourself along with your question. Like while you are writing down your question, please give a brief introduction of yourself. You can direct your questions to a specific panelist, moderator, or all panelists. Like if you are unaware clearly whom to ask the question, you can simply mark it to all panelists. Whosoever is like to answer that question will directly give the response to it. Please use the chat option to express your point of view. Looking forward to an interactive session. I hope you all are able to see there's a chat box that is there on your screens and it will help you converse better with the speakers and the moderator. It's onto the right side of your application. I hope everyone can see the chat box. Now let's take a quick look at the flow of today's session. Please refer to the agenda displayed on the screen.
TV.
I hope everyone is able to see the agenda for today.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have some of the prominent speakers lined up for the webinar. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being part of this virtual session today. So let me introduce you to Mr. Sadaf Saeed, CEO of Muthoot Microfinance Limited, Mr. Raman Singh, Chief Innovation Officer, CCPL, Mr. Dominic Vijay, DVP and Head IT Art Housing Finance Limited, Mr. Indranil Phuke, founder Simple CRM. We were supposed to have Mr. Manish Ketkar, who were former Chief Business Officer, United Stock Exchange of India, but due to some avoidable circumstances, he has not been part of this session as of now. So we would like to start our session and we will like to kickstart our session with our opening speaker, Mr. Sadaf Saeed, who is Chief Executive Officer, Muthoot Microfinance Limited. Mr. Saeed has around 2 decades of experience in banking and financial service industry. He has worked with organizations such as HDFC Bank, GE Money, Spandan, Spandan Financial Limited in credit and risk management functions. Prior to joining Muthoot, he was head internal audit risk with Saturn Credit Care Network Limited. Sadaf has hands-on experience in policymaking, credit administrations, operations, and risk management with expertise in retail lending business and core competence in unsecured small and large loans. He would be speaking on the concerned topic, embracing change in the digital landscape while navigating legacy challenges in the bank. Welcome, Mr. Sadaf Saeed. Platform is all yours. We would like you to give us some insights on the topic. This topic is embracing change in the digital landscape. So platform is yours to start with.
Thank you, Jyoti. I believe if you can hear me, just confirm that.
Sure, Mr. Saeed, we can hear you.
Yeah, I've sent across a presentation. If that can be put in, that will be great. But in case if that is not there, I can continue with
Sure, we will be playing it on in a minute's time. Meanwhile, you can start.
Yeah, anyway, thank you to the Cloud Connect team, and thank you for organizing this platform and giving an opportunity to speak. A pleasure to be here. I think the topic that has been given to me is about digital change that has happened across our spectrum and how it is impacting all of us. So I just want to kind of go back and reflect on what exactly is happening in our ecosystem and what is happening. And I represent a point of view of banking and financial services industry, being a practitioner into microfinance space, really dealing with the microfinance client at the bottom of the pyramid. So they have really been impacted. So over the period of time, we have seen a massive amount of change that has taken place in the ecosystem. I think the digital environment, especially for financial services, has kind of changed leaps and bounds, and the whole change has brought about by the digital stack, which is Jandan, Aadhaar, and mobile. Jam Trinity, which is known as popularly. So we look at today, we have almost around 117 crores of mobile connections across the country, and the distribution of these connections is around 62 crores connection in urban space and around 52 crores connection in the rural space. And in terms of Aadhaar, around 128 crore, pretty much everybody in the country has an Aadhaar ID. And if you look at mortality and some Aadhaar accounts which are kind of rejected later on, I think 95% of the population is covered with Aadhaar seeding. And today you're seeing on day in and day out on a monthly basis, almost 8.8 crore people are doing eKYC using these Aadhaar. So this is really getting utilized. The another initiative which Government of India took place during or post demonetization was opening Jandan account for rural population. So almost around 42 crores beneficiaries are there with Jandan accounts today, having cumulatively 1.41 lakh crores of balances in their account. So all of these things put together, the mobile phone penetration, the Aadhaar account penetration, and Aadhaar, which is available to everybody, has created a very good ecosystem for us to kind of transact and utilize this ecosystem to do all sorts of transactions. So digital has really taken place in the recent times, and this has happened. Being a practitioner, we have seen ourselves how the digital space has evolved. It was very difficult for us to kind of, especially for a microfinance borrower, to consider transacting through the bank account, because she generally prefers to transact in cash. But with the digitization that has taken place, with demonetization happening, and everybody kind of focusing on only using cashless means of doing transaction, people
Has
were
joined.
forced and people have kind of adopted to use digital transformation and use those digital means of payment. So that's why you're seeing more and more adoption. If you go further, a slide further, please. Can we go into the next slide, please? Yeah, so if you look at the data which NPCI, National Payments Corporation of India, puts in, every month we are looking at almost around 230 crore digital transactions that are happening, at around 4.25 lakh crores of money getting transacted through these transactions. This is a huge kind of a transformation, and you can look at it from last 2 years perspective. It's year on year almost doubling. You are looking at Jan 19, this was around 1 lakh crore kind of a transactions, and 67 crore transaction with 1 lakh crore value, and which has come to a 4 lakh crore value today. So almost a 4 times jump in 2 years. So the revolution is happening very, very fast, and digital plays a key role in it. India is the capital for payment systems, and the way they are evolving, the way technology is being used, and the way these transactions are happening, the way people are adopting, be it NPCI, be it UPI by Bharat Bill Pay system, or any other kind of a payment system that is evolving very fast. If you can go a slide further, RBI has done a decent study on how the payment system has evolved. If you look at in the last decade how it has happened, the payment ecosystem has evolved dramatically. So earlier, where you had traditional methods of RTGS, ECS, NEFT, MICR clearing of checks and cards, here you have multiple options these days. You have RuPay cards, you have Bharat Bill Pay system, you have NETC, you have UPI, MPS, and ACS. So multiple options are there. So huge amount of opportunities for people to transact. It is making it easier for people to transact. If you go a slide further, how the transactions have evolved in terms of where the money was used. Earlier, it was paper transaction. Earlier, a decade ago, almost 60% of the transaction were in kind of form of paper transaction. Now those paper transactions are reduced hardly to 3%. 61% of the transaction are happening electronically, 21% are card payments, and 15% are PPI transaction. So this is really the revolution which has happened over the period of time. If you go further in the retail system, just go a slide further. Retail payment system, you see the paper transactions have reduced from 89, which is like 90% of the transactions which were done in paper are now done, 75% of them are done electronically. So this is the real digital revolution that is happening, and the ease of kind of transacting and the way people are adopting, it is all because of this ecosystem which has been created. And now the adaptability and the events that have happened have played a role. So definitely demonetization played a role in people adopting the digital payment system. And similarly, like COVID has also created an environment where people were aware of these payment systems and digital means of transaction, and they utilize these means of transaction. So I can tell you anecdotally, for microfinance institutions like us and the entire industry, we are a 2,30,000 crores of industry. A few years ago, we used to struggle to do disbursement digitally. Maybe 10% of the disbursements were done. Now, almost 90% of our disbursements are done digitally across the industry. So that is how fast the digital space is taking
Has
off.
joined.
And this is not restricted to financial services itself. You look at the way the education system has evolved. I think everybody who was here having kids at home would have seen their kids taking their classes over a tab, over a mobile throughout the year, which was not at all kind of conceivable a few years ago. If I was told that my daughter would be taught any subject for like on online, I would rather prefer a face-to-face kind of a teaching class. So, but now we have all realized that this is a perfect way of communication where you don't take the risk, and this is a kind of a good way of communicating. And what digital
Has joined.
has really kind of communicated to us is that the reach is immense. The revolution, why the transaction in NPCI are ballooning like the way they are, despite there are multiple payment systems that are coming in space, and why there is so much of reach, because digital enables us to reach out to multiple people at the same time and with very little cost, and effectively uniforming and democratizing the information. So that is where the revolution is happening. The reach has really been increased because of the revolution that has happened in digital space, especially in financial services, how it has evolved. And I think it is taking place in every aspect. So be it like your education sector, be it financial services sector, be it road and transportation sector. If you look at the e-way bill receipts that are being issued, you can look at the national highway data in terms of the toll collection receipts that are getting there. So revenue is increasing by use of digital information and by using this. So I think the revolution is all around us. How we plug and play with it is where the whole kind of benefit of it can be derived from. Financial services, by that way, have been integrating quite frequently. The systems that are available in the environment are quite useful in terms of like various payment platforms and stuff like that. There is user-friendly API integration that can be done with the system, and that can be opened up to the customers and the users which are there. Similar integration we will see in the communication space also, which is happening seamlessly across various mobile service providers, and also people who are using communication by way of like transacting with their customer. For example, we are today communicating with our customer through a bot system where the bot is available 24/7. If the customer wants to engage with us, wants to communicate with us, can go to our website and communicate with us 24/7, and the response is faster. We are able to address the right amount of queries. We are able to get the right amount of feedback from the customer, and the right kind of calls are escalated to the next level where there is a person who's directly dealing with the customer. So I think all of this is enabling a better customer engagement and better customer satisfaction. I would see much more kind of evolution in the coming days, more use of digital technology getting in there. We would have never imagined using for rural population applications for them to kind of borrow loan and repay installments and stuff, but we are doing that. Obviously, it is a little bit of an assisted e-commerce model where we do a certain amount of training to these borrowers in terms of how to use those applications. But definitely, the customer is getting educated, learning about these apps, and they're transacting on these apps. The adoption is really fast. We really underestimate the adaptability of the rural population, but they are really adapting to it, and they are hooking up to it. They are able to get more information, quick information, and the reach and the connectivity problem is sorted out because of this. So I
Has
think
joined.
these kind of ecosystem that the government has enabled will allow us to leverage on them. We are looking at more and more evolution. We are looking at digital eKYC. We are looking at video eKYC. All of this. So these things will make our life easier and will help us take the services, be it financial services or any other form of services, to the last mile, to deepest corner of the country, and the person who is the beneficiary would be able to take advantage of it. So that's my summation. That's all that I would like.
That's quite a lot of information, I would say, Mr. Said, because we have seen a lot of changes that has been happened in past decade. Like the simple example, like looking at the banking sector, where it was a routine for the people to go to the banks and just stand in a queue and get their money withdrawn, or just if in case even if they have to send money to somebody, then they have to stand in queues, wait for the authorized person, get the transaction clear. But nowadays it's like just one click you do on your mobile application and you send the money or you connect to the people that ways. And same happened for a lot of sectors. Even if I consider a day-to-day life has been easy by using all these digital scopes. So definitely, you shared a lot of information, the data that has been there in India, like that has been activated so far for the users use or our Indian citizens. So it's a lot of digitization that has been happening. And yes, where you raise the point, people somewhere need a little bit of education, wherein like the techniques how to use these application effectively. Somewhere in the rural areas they're still facing the problem. So it yes takes time to reach to a lot of audience, or I would say a lot of area or the regions. But yes, even if it's reaching slowly, I think it is helping India to make economy better in terms of using the economy or making it a effective channel wherein you can perform your duties, your work within ease of a simple application. Instead, you go talk to four people and then you get that work done. Thank you so much, Saeed. I think it was very informative for all of us. So let's move to our next host, who is Mr. Raman Singh, our next speaker. So we have our next thought leader, Mr. Raman Singh, who is Chief Innovative Officer at Cloud Connect Communications. Mr. Singh has rich understanding of telecom sector through his experience of more than 2 decades, including a decade in enterprise sales with British Telecom UK and various other TSPs and ISPs. He drives innovation, sales, and marketing and customer success. Mr. Raman will be speaking and sharing his thoughts with us on the impact of UCAS in today's dispersed workforce environment. So, welcome, Mr. Raman Singh. Platform is yours. We would like to hear your thoughts on the topic of impact of UCAS. You have a vast knowledge to share with us on this.
Thanks, Jyoti. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak on this platform. I think cloud adoption has been becoming vital in the past few years, and India is clearly witnessing with more and more data centers coming out in India, right from Google, AWS, and so on and so forth. And plus the misfortune, or I would say another opportunity to experience the work from home or work from anywhere culture, which has actually come because of the COVID. A lot of businesses are now gearing up for such a kind of environment. So yes, the unified communication is definitely more and more vital, because definitely it's adding more value to the business continuity, which we all know as the BCP planning for any business. Especially with the BFSI, I think it's much more vital, because definitely even if everything is closed, you still want your money to or and the transactions to happen in the real time. So that is all happening, and UCAS is playing a vital role in that sense. UCAS has become much more vital since the launch of the cloud services, and so Cloud Connect plays a very vital role here, because the kind of UCaaS services which we all understand, because of the technology, is creating the speed, and speed is everything in today's evolving business of the distributed workforce. Post-COVID, we have already witnessed throughout the world that 2020 and 2021 are declared as the years of home working or work from anywhere. So UCaaS definitely has a very, very important role because obviously the BCP or the disaster recovery, which most of the businesses do apply in various other patterns, as my colleague Sadaf just now explained us, like how eKYC is coming up in a much important role because obviously the people are working from home and they still want the banking and their transactions to go through and all the banking stuff to happen. So with given those criteria and given those situations, unified communications is much more important in today's time. As we talk about UCaaS, for most of the people, I think the UCaaS simply means Unified Communications as a Service, which basically includes the voice, the video, the chat, the and various other value-add services attached to it, whether it's your email, your messaging, your WhatsApp. So given the fact everything is moving towards more of an omni-channel 360-degree approach, so that's where the UCaaS comes in with a much more vital thing. Uh, Again, I'm going to say just in order to understand the BFSI sector going forward, I think it's the dispersed workforce, whether it's the contact center, whether it's the customer service agents working from home, or even your salespeople, which are actually doing the eKYC in the real time, sitting with the customer, sitting at in their own convenience or working from home culture. So that's becoming much and more vital. Uh, in just to quickly, see the dispersed workforce environment and the work from anywhere culture stuff which is happening, we are also witnessing a lot of other industries going through the same curve.
Uh, Raman, are you there? Raman, we are waiting for you to resume the session. So let's just pause for a second or two. I guess Raman is facing some of the issues with his internet connections. We are just waiting for him to resume. So we just received some of the update that he is not able to continue onto the session due to some of the technical issues right now. So onto this ongoing discussion level, he may resume after some time. So let's start with our next level, which is panel discussion. Before than that, if in case any of you have some more things to ask, any questions you really like to ask any of our speakers related to this BFSI domain, digitalization, UCAS. So I would suggest you to get in touch at our email ID, which is marketing@cloud-connect.in. You may note it down, and whatever the questions you have, you can freely send it to us, and the concerned person will send a reply to you. We will be in empaneling you directly with the answers that we would be receiving from the concerned person. So let's go to the level of our panel discussion. So we have our first panelist, Mr. Dominic Vijay. He is DVP and Head IT Art Housing Finance Limited. He has been in various strategic roles at Next Ventures, Vana Retreats Private Limited, which is a part of Max Group, Kingfisher Airlines Limited, and Air Deccan Limited, and the Oberoi Group of Hotels. Presently, Mr. Vijay heads the technology division for Outsourcing Finance India Limited. His result-oriented approach towards technology and digitalization, architecture, pioneering and managing complex IT designs, including cloud-based applications, has been path-breaking. Mr. Dominic Vijay, you are most welcome to our platform. Before we start our panel discussion, I would like to ask you if you have some of the insights to share with us, some of the thoughts that you may like to share before we start onto the panel discussion.
Thanks, Jyoti. I thank Cloud Connect and your team for connecting me onto this, inviting me for this particular session. It was very insightful when it was started by Mrs. Syed, and later it was Raman. And with already the pioneers in the industry talking on the technology driven, the digital transformation, the customer experience, and how are we going to use the unified communication across to see, end of the day, it's the customer who's going to be the king. So whatever technology we use, it has to be passed on to these people, and how are we going to accept it and get going? That's it from my side, Jyoti. I think I should be part of the panel, and let's get on with the panel for this.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Let's us move on to our next speaker, Mr. Indranil Phuke. So, Mr. Indranil Phuke, he has been the founder and director of Simple CRM. We are well aware of Simple CRM nowadays. Mr. Indranil Phuke has a rich 20 years of experience, global experience in product and program management, developing business strategies, leading large global teams on complex projects, general management, and developing innovative solutions. He has specializations in customer relationship management, AI, handling global accounts, managing complex deals, Asian markets, solution sales, etc. I mean, we can add a lot of things related to customer and his sales experience in his profile, and I think he is one of the person who can share a lot of thoughts onto how he experienced the sales and customer relationship management part and looking at the current BFSI industry domain. A most welcome to Mr. Indranil Phuke for joining us today. So, Mr. Phuke, do you like to share some of your experience with us on to this domain that we are speaking about today, or we are engaging on to?
Thank you, Jyoti, for a very warm introduction, and thank you for inviting me for this event. It was certainly very enlightening to hear Mr. Sadaf Said's insights in the microfinance industry and what is happening in the BFSI sector. We are also, as a solution provider, from a solution provider's perspective, where we are providing the CRM solutions, the eKYC solutions, the video KYC solutions, chatbots, and co-browsing. So we are also experiencing similar kind of experiences from our customers and partners. I would like to elaborate more during the panel discussion. For now, that's it from my side.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phuke. Let's move to our panel discussion. We were supposed to have Manish Ketkar, but due to some of the reasons, as I mentioned earlier, he has not been part of the session right now. So let's start with the questions of the panel discussions. So the first question that we have is for Mr. Said, and we have this question: what is the current state of technological advancement in the Indian BFSI sector?
Yeah, so as I mentioned during my presentation, so technology is really changing fast in BFSI sector, especially the adoption both on the service provider side from the financial services organization as well as adoption from the customer side. It's happening quite fast, quite rapidly. You are seeing all sorts of facilities being offered online digitally. Now there's increased use of apps. So definitely, I think the adoption is very fast. Some of the data that we have shown in the NPCI digital platform, how the transactions are happening, it's revolutionary. And for payment revolution, India is the hub globally. The way it is happening, and with India, the advantage is that the scale and the size is huge. I think the only thing that comes with it is the incremental risk that is there in terms of digital fraud and cyber attacks and all of that. That is something that financial services still grappling with, though RBI has a very elaborate kind of guidelines. But all of these are something which are evolving now. And as we speak, RBI is still working on a draft guidelines that how they need to categorize various NBFCs into based on their size or based on their functions in terms of systematically important and smaller NBFCs or medium-sized NBFCs, and respective regulation would be there. But definitely, technology will play a role in the way the financial system is evolving, in the way the transactions are getting done, in the way we interact with the customer, in the way we originate customer. Now, if you look at, there is a lot of kind of peer-to-peer lending that is happening. There is a lot of onboarding of clients which is happening. There is co-lending platform that are being constructed for people to lend together to a same borrower. So origination of loan is not really typical brick and mortar structure, and you go out and kind of rough it out on the road and get it. But it is more like being at the right place and reaching out to the customers. So I think all of this is happening through technology. More and more use of applications. Every organization, every bank, every financial institution has apps to interact with their customers. So this is the way that people are communicating with their borrowers and with their customers. So I think overall you will see more use of these technology going forward with I think all this integration of JAM enabling infrastructure that the government has created, and the government is itself encouraging more use of digital technology, less use of cash, so which is also enabling more use of technology.
That's great. Like you very well answered the question. So, Mr. Vijay, I have the same question for you. So, I hope you can see the question on your screen. So, would you like to share your thoughts on the topic?
Thanks, Jyoti. Jyoti, I'll break it up into two. This question, I'll break it up into two kind of parameters. Okay, since I come from a housing background, I'll be a little bit specific on that and in sync with the BFSI requirement. Do we work together? We come under the common regulator, RBI and NHB. Okay, when I look at the current technologies advanced in the BFSI or NBFC or any other HFC sector is concerned, is today, in the broader way, if I tell you, today data analytics plays a very vital role. Data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, because these are the we have done a lot of activities. We have captured the customer's data, everything is with us. But technically speaking, how are you going to utilize the data? How are you going to capture the data? And today we are talking about one, I said, artificial intelligence, machine learning, then your cloud computing is another one, data analytics, how you're going to use the data. The second thing is the kind of data you're captured, whether it is the traditional data or non-traditional data, and how are you going to predict using this data, how are you going to predict the customer's life cycle. So for all this, technology plays a major role. And saying the second thing, and coming back to the advanced one. Today we are talking about intelligent chatbots. We are talking about robocalling. Today we are talking about video branching. I'll give an example. By though we are a housing finance company, we have virtual branches. We don't have a virtual physical infrastructure. We have virtual branches where technology is given to the salesperson to log in the files. He just logs in the file to the technology and is mapped to one of the nearest spoke or the nearest hub. And we do video branching. Some of today, we don't entertain the customer due to post-COVID. What we have done is we started doing video branching. Like, we ask the customer to log, we send a link to the customer via SMS or to WhatsApp, and customer logs in, and if case got any kind of queries, that's been addressed by the customer service team. So this is all latest technology. And when you look at that, today technology is driven in the mobility way. It is no more a laptop or a desktop kind of concept. It is more of a mobility on the move. You need everything. And we are looking, the technology should always be built as per the millennium requirement. Today, for example, if I take the e-commerce platform, or if I take up those aggregators like Make My Trip or your Swiggy or Zomato and all that, look at the standards they maintain. It's all technology driven. Today, if you want to sell your car, it is nothing is there. There's no human interaction other than the few standard formalities which has to be completed. Other than everything is driven by technology. At the time your car is sold, within 4 to I think max to max 5 minutes, you have your money credited in your account. So technology is driven, and there is no end for technology. Today you're talking about mobility, tomorrow we talk about a lot of things, and today we are talking even IoT, but we don't use much of IoT in the BFSI and the kind of financial segment much. We are not so matured enough. Yes, we are trying to bring in those things. Okay, then when you talk about the kind of SaaS model, what we are going to use for communication purpose, as you said, as per the question you mentioned there. Today SaaS is very important role. SaaS plays a very important role in a business like us, because if I take my company as an example, we are an affordable segment company where our margins or our rate of interest is very high compared to other private sectors. So where the quantity is more, the margin is less. So where we can't invest in the technology infrastructure, building up a data center, building up this. The best way is to go on a SaaS model, that is software as a service. Whether you host it on the cloud, you take the software, use it, or how much ever you use it, number of clients have been access to it. It depends. Tomorrow, if you have 500 users working on it, you use it for 500. Tomorrow, you reduce it by 200, and you pay only for the usage you're going to pay. The SaaS plays a very vital role, very vital role. And second thing is accepting this culture. See, there are this question, particular thing carries three things. One is the advancement in BFSI. Second is the SaaS model, and how is the culture accepting it? This is very challengeable when you, as a CI, CTO, or as a CIO. For me, adoption of this particular technology or digital transformation culture is always a challenge, because especially in the financial industry, you find people and the team staying for a very long time. Sometimes you even see people staying here for 10 years, 15 years. So for them, changing them from the legacy model and asking them to adapt the technology is always a challenge. But going forward, it is no other way. You have to accept the digital, and if you have to make revenue, and if you have to be in the market, if you have to think about out of box thinking and have a cutthroat competition. To be very frank, and this word is a little bit harsh, but in the financial industry today, it's a cutthroat competition. It has to be very tough competition. So you have to be digitally strong, and the culture, the culture outfit which is within the organization has to accept the culture that it is technology. Without technology, nothing can happen. But yeah, there are certain times compliance, your regulatory requirements makes you to work on the mortar and brick process. So you have to work both on the digital and the basically you can work on the hybrid technology. So this is what my submission towards this particular topic is, but it's a very vast topic. If we start discussing it, there is no end for technology, technically speaking.
Agree, Mr. Vijay, because talking about these SaaS-based services, it's like definitely a very long topic, and how we can effectively use it for the kind of developments that we are talking about, the kind of business communications we are talking about nowadays. We cannot limit the SaaS-based development. It's like how innovative, how creative we go with it, how we process our thoughts, how we use the whole system. It depends on it only. So it's like people like you, people like others who are coming up with the thoughts and then making it work that way and giving the ease to the end users. So
Correct.
that's again, yes, definitely talking about technology, talking about SaaS, it's again a kind of an unlimited discussion that we can carry on. Right. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Mr. Saeed and Mr. Vijay. Let's move to our next question. So let me just display the next question, which has been thrown for Mr. Indranil Fouquet.
Yes, Jyoti, what is the question again?
Yeah, definitely. Let me show it onto the screen as well. So the question that is there for you is like, in today's enterprise world, how important is it to integrate voice and data communication? Like two of the major sections that we talk about nowadays in businesses with the enterprise CRM and or field force automation system.
Okay, great question, Jyoti. So, what we have seen is that banking, financial services, and insurance sectors are typically the early adopters of enterprise technology. What many organizations had already started with their path to digitization a couple of years ago, but the real impetus came with the disruption that was caused by COVID-19. So, what was earlier considered a strategic initiative has suddenly become compulsory. So when we talk about digital transformation, it covers the ability of the organizations to find and engage the customers across multiple digital channels, improving process efficiencies through intelligent automation, and giving the employees the flexibility to be productive and work from whichever location. Now, an area that significantly boosts productivity is omni-channel customer support automation. So we are working with banks and insurance companies to deliver, let's say, an accurate customer 360 view. An accurate customer 360 view kind of pops up in front of a call center agent whenever a customer calls. The agent is able to get a single view of all the relevant information about this customer right in front of him as soon as the call is received by the agent. Now, this is something that we do through collaboration with telephony platforms like Cloud Connect for the voice channel, as well as augment that with ability to connect with the customer through non-voice channels such as WhatsApp, SMS, chatbots, Facebook messengers, and the others. Okay. So, for example, if you imagine a scenario where a customer leaves a nasty comment on a bank's Facebook page, okay. So now there are Facebook listener plugins available that can instantly pick that post up, do a sentiment analysis on it, and if it's a negative sentiment, immediately trigger a workflow that automatically launches a call to the customer via the call center. Okay, or if the customer has left this comment, let's say at 9 p.m. in the night, the workflow can trigger a WhatsApp message or a Facebook Messenger message to the customer to limit the damage. Okay. So a tight integration of voice and data communication systems with the CRM, it ensures consistently superior communication and customer experience across all the digital channels. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fouquet. Mr. Said, I would like to ask the same question with you as well. So, definitely, like I see a lot of changes that has happened in BFSI industry, but I would like you if you can give us some insights on how this integration of voice and data communication has been implemented or be a part of this enterprise CRM into the BFSI domain, and how has been it is performing into the current automation system that we are talking about onto the industry level.
Yeah, I'll just unmute myself. So there are multiple levels of integration that has happened in BFSI industry with respect to handling a customer. So as previous panelist was speaking, there have been chat boxes that have been created. There are IVRs that have been put in place there when a person calls, a customer calls at a call center. So his call is never put on hold or a wait, he immediately interacts with an IVR mechanism, and he's able to kind of convey or get to the right channel in terms of whom he wants to speak, be it like kind of a service query, be it a complaint, or be it something that it's an inquiry. So he's directed to the right channel. We have used it, multiple banks use it currently, and I think it is becoming more and more relevant these days when you have limited interaction and you don't want to encourage too much of footfall into your branch. So in fact, during COVID times, we had used this extensively for our clients to inform them about various type of moratoriums and various regulations that at various times regulator had imposed. So we had used digital communication in the form of triggering SMSs, then encouraging voice calls, which were automatic calls which go out to the customer informing about the various regulations that have been put in place. So all of that is happening. I think Chatbox is just one of the examples. I think there are a lot of apps that are getting used. In fact, we are using an in-house app that we have developed for assessing customer mood and satisfaction to get customers' feedback in terms of whether they are happy with our services or they are not happy. So that has really kind of given us a pulse of the situation, that what we are doing right and what we are doing wrong. So I think it is happening across the industry in terms of voice and in terms of data, or converting both of them, and a lot of analytics being done, smart assessment of the customers, and then dealing with the customer in the way that suits the best.
Well said on to that side. And what I can experience, I think what we all have experienced so far in this, I think, pandemic time, like when we were just calling on to the banking services and we were getting the response, even the customer executive isn't available or physically not there, and we were still able to approach or get the services that we needed. So it was not a kind of complete shutdown of the services. So I think this voice integration and data communication has definitely helped the business and the common people like us that ways.
Yeah, for myself, I can't remember when was the last time I visited a bank branch.
Definitely, I agree. Even I don't remember when we have been physically there to sort out issues with the bank and then work out onto the papers. Nowadays, even if I see these sectors have made it like, even if you go for a claim, you go for a policy, you can do all the formalities online. You can just upload the form, you attach your documents, you get everything done. It's like from deposit till the disbursement, everything is running through your just command or just typing or just messaging or texting. So it's not something that is going ahead in terms of a lot of paperwork. Thank you, Mr. Fuken. Thank you, Mr. Said, for having answering onto this level. So we have next question, which is for Mr. Dominic Vijay. So let me just show the question onto the screen. So, Mr. Vijay, we have this question for you: how BFSI can achieve their objectives in the age of digitization, and what roles does cybersecurity, business communication, infrastructure, and technology plays?
It's a very big question, Jyoti. I'll again break it up in different things. Can you just repeat the first line? How does BFSI? If you could repeat the question, Jyoti, please. Yeah, Jyoti. I got the question. Let me again break it up into three. Yes, around three to four parameters and speak on that. Okay, when I look at the first part, how does BFSI take up the digitization? There is another alternate option for it. BFI, whether it's BFSI or NBFC or HFC, there's no other alternate option. If you have to increase your revenue and automate your process, bring in better manpower, skilled manpower, and get things moving, improve your TAT. Today, if you're looking at the customer's expectations, it's below your, above your, above your thinking. You cannot, you can't. Sometimes there are certain circumstances where you can't even match the customer's expectations. So digitization plays a very, very important role for us when it comes to BFSI or any other financial industries as of now, because that's very important. We need to match our requirements with the customer. The only way to match the requirements of the customers is to be digitized, technologically driven, and you need to have expertise team to handle this technology. It's not only the technology which is going to implement, not only the digitization which is how it's going to handle it, how is it going to get things moving. The second thing is when you're looking at the cyber security, yes, as you start digitizing, as you bring in digital transformation, as you change the technology, cyber security is always on the forefront, and it's always there's a threat. You find a way that the hackers find a different way to hack your thing. So your any system you design, whether it's a technology, whether you talk about the application, whether you talk about the infrastructure, it has to be built by security. Security should always be a design, because initially during the software development stages, we always follow that software development life cycle where there is a proper design given to us. But today we are adding one more layer to that, security as design. So security as design has to be, otherwise there's no other alternate option for you, because you build something, next moment you find them hacking it, and that's has an impact on your business, your financials, and the reputation of the organization. And once any one of these three components fail, your business is nowhere, and you put yourself down in front of the competitors. That's very important. Cyber security has to be considered, and I had the CISO security division for my organization, and I'm a designated CISO. So I give more importance to security. Whenever we do any kind of activity, we see that cyber security plays a very, very, when you say cyber security, it's a vast subject, but when you look at the application or the infrastructure, the kind of activity we do, and you got to be very clear with the latest security patches coming up, the kind of Android devices that can, even the devices, the mobile devices, what you use, it's not secured anymore. Even the IMEI number can be. So you've got to be very, very precise in that. So cybersecurity plays a very role. And when you talk about the infrastructure, yes, from the business point of view, infrastructure, but globally, when you look at India, where we are driving the digital digital roadmap, which has been driven by the Honorable Prime Minister. But somewhere I feel we talk a lot, but technically speaking, on the ground, we are still at the, what do you say that, I can say we are still at 60 to 70%. We have achieved. Another 30% is very important, because when you get into the remote places, for example, if a place where I operate in Rajasthan, a place called Chomu is a branch where I have a virtual branch, I find connectivity is always a problem for me. And there are certain places, where you talk about Rohtak or Karnal, there also you find connectivity issues. So one is the infrastructure, second thing is the communal problem where the internet is down. That's an impact of my business. So all this plays a role. When you look at digitization or the digital transformation is concerned, it's very important for us. Cybersecurity has to play equal role, because today the investment before it was cybersecurity, it was only antivirus. It is no more than antivirus. There are a lot of other things which is involved. So the board, that's why there is always a board which is being trained, which board is responsible for the cyber incidents of any organization. So board takes a call onto that. So at this time, I think the capex have been increased for the cyber security as far as concerned. And on overall for the complete the question which has been raised, I look at one is we need to give very importance to digital transformation, which is whether it is physical or digital part of it. Cybersecurity plays a very important role. Then at the same time, acceptance. I again and again keep repeating that you can invent anything, you can innovate, you can drop down, you can implement it. But the end of the day, the end user who's going to use it has to adapt to the technology. There should be a culture change. We shouldn't still stick on to the legacy model. We should change ourselves, accept the technology, and start implementing it. Post implementation, you got to start using it. So end of the day, technology's ROI, return of investment, comes only when the end users start using all the modules. I've seen some of the organizations where you buy a product worth X value, and then finally the usage of the value will not be minus X value, because the modules you would have bought so many things, but nobody will be using those modules. It is not only for other company, even in my company also face the same kind of thing. These are a few things which we need to keep very in mind. Investment is good, but acceptance, adaptation of the technology is very, very important. And and security, I always tell this sentence. It is not only the IT or the CIO, the CISO's work is to guard the thing. It is every individual user of the organization is responsible of the security, whether it is a cyber, is a physical security, or the logical security. So I end my submission with this.
Well, agreed on to that side. I guess everything comes up with the pros and cons, and considering that technology may have loopholes also, so we do have
Sure.
some of this that comes our way, and especially when your business completely relies on some technology-based solutions. So you have to be very careful when you are planning and when you're actually implementing the solutions. Like for an example, I would consider starting any of the module or internal development, like you said, the software development, the requirements that you receive, you have to be really very careful, like which organization, which employees to schedule for the development program, plus with it, what kind of technology you're looking for. And then you have to look at the active measures, how you can control it, else would people go and abuse the technology, right? So
Yeah.
I guess with the growing time, with the developments that we have seen so far, we see cybersecurity plays a vital role into this segment of the technology development. A lot of care, a lot of thought is required not only for developing the solution, but how to make that solution safe for end users and how to protect the business. So we also have some question on it. We would be asking into the Q&A section. So let's move on to our next question, which is for Mr. Sadaf Saeed. And thank you, Mr. Vijay, for sharing your thoughts onto the mentioned question. So, Mr. Sadaf Saeed, I am going to display the question that we have for you. It is more related to future-proofing your company into the growing times of digitalization.
Sure.
So, Mr. Saeed, this is future-proofing your company, the bank, with a progressive SaaS approach in current times of the development. So, we like your inputs on the same.
Yeah, so I think the way technology is improving, I'm good that we are
I hope you are
discussing
able to
here
see the
about.
question on your screen.
I can't see the question, but I think I got what you're saying. I'm talking about future proofing our organization and any financial
Do
services
you want me to
organization.
repeat the question if you're not able to see?
It'd be great if you can. Yeah, now I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah, so I think with the more and more use of SaaS, so software as a service, where we are kind of integrating many apps and many facilities, and with multiple kind of developers and organization which are partnering in an kind of environment. I think it is important and imperative that we have all the security features in place. I think good that we are talking about cyber security also here, because that is the biggest threat that we see as more and more digitization of the economy happens. The data integrity, the security of the software, the security from cyber attacks, and also I think RBI and Supreme Court has played a very, very great emphasis on protection of data, customer information. That is very, very important. So I think any organization which is in today's day and age growing and using excessive use of technology to grow, which is almost everyone, they need to ensure that the customer data is protected. I think there are various ways. I think people are using kind of on the site even infrastructure in terms of data. but cloud is becoming more popular because it's more user friendly, but there are concept of private cloud and ensuring that data is protected and it's encrypted and it's kept safely. So all of those needs to be
I have a
used.
question here. Sorry, say to hang you in between. So, like we talk about cloud. So, do you really think like we can completely rely on cloud? Because every like there are major players in terms of giving you the services of cloud, and like businesses, the large businesses or even the small businesses which are more onto the transactional side. If they move on to cloud, do you really think that their data, the information they are putting up on the cloud will be 100% safe? Or can we have the surety that there won't be any data thefts so far?
No, there have been breaches of data in all sorts of formats, but I think what we have to kind of differentiate is between data which is of sensitive nature, which needs to be protected a little bit more than the other data. So I think it's a mix of on-site servers and servers which are on the cloud, which can be used, a private cloud that can be used, and a kind of a firewall sorts of has to be created to ensure that we don't get kind of caught kind of in a sense by an attack. So that is necessary. But to answer to your question, there have been breaches of data security even in best of the services. Even Microsoft data was leaked quite recently. So I can't say there is anything which is completely foolproof, but incrementally the process is evolving both on the regulatory side. The regulator is aware and is perfectly sensitized. Also on the entrepreneur and the practitioner side, we are also aware of our seriousness in terms of protecting the client information and also protecting kind of what is our secret sauce. So all of that needs to be protected. But I think cloud and I think on-site, it's a mix of infrastructure that needs to be used. Cloud is, in a sense, today's day and age has become necessary for ensuring seamless kind of an access of information and also scaling up business because it allows you to kind of scale and curtail a variable kind of a model. But I think from data security point of view, there are vulnerabilities. I think people are increasingly insisting at least the server to be hosted in Indian environment and then ensuring that they get into a private cloud setup. So I think all of that needs to be balanced a little bit. That's what I feel.
And if I may extend that, today most of the major cloud providers like Azure, AWS, IBM Software, so they have their data centers in India. So previously, the regulatory requirement that, especially for the banks, that the data should not leave the country. So to large extent, that problem has been solved. Uh, Personally, I feel there is. I mean, first of all, there is no 100% security for on-premise or on cloud deployments because there are many factors that come into play. But the cloud security can be at least as good as, if not better than, what you could get on-premise. For most of this, let's say Azure, AWS, IBM Software, their systems are already rated pretty high on security parameters, and they have extensive unified threat management systems in place, which typically most of the organizations by themselves will not be able to put into place. So that is there. I would say it's more of a perception issue, especially for us. If I have to share my own experience or our experience, all the non-BFSI customers are perfectly comfortable with cloud, and a lot of insurance companies, life insurers and general insurers, are also increasingly more taking their CRM on cloud. So we have them on our CRM as a SaaS platform deployment. But none of the public sector banks that we are working with in India or let's say in Sri Lanka, none of them trust cloud. I think it's a matter of perception. So all those deployments are on-prem, but the non-NBFCs and the insurance companies, they are increasingly adopting cloud.
Yes, agree on to that side that everybody is not 100% confident, and looking at the, I would say, the perception of the Indian society or the people that have been there in industry for so long, they still prefer to get something which is close to them, which is on their premises, which is in their reach, and somehow they don't get the confidence. And again, if we look at somewhere, I think the major players who are providing us the services of this cloud, somewhere they have the hold of the data or the information that we share. I think again we would be having a lot of this discussion on this particular topic, because it will go a long way. That ways, if we start talking about all the cybersecurity systems and onto how we can save the data, right? So thank you, Mr. Fouquet, and sharing, Mr. Saeed, your inputs onto this topic. So, Mr. Fouquet, I have a question for you listed with us, which is more related to digital transformation and new technology development. Let me show it to on your screen for a better view.
Sure.
I hope you're able to see it on your screen.
Not yet, actually. The question is not visible. You can just read out the question to me.
The question is digital transformation more than just implementing a new technology? So definitely we are talking about, are we only talking about digital transformation in terms of changing or upgrading our system to a better technology or new technology, or we are talking about a complete new level of version, I would say, of the platforms or the communications that we use, like in this digital world?
Sure. Okay, the short answer is yes, it's certainly more than just a new technology. So I would actually like to take a different cut or angle on it. So technology is no doubt one of the most critical aspects of digital transformation, right? But of equal importance is the change management that accompanies any transformation process. Okay, so which includes educating and managing expectations of all the stakeholders across the value chain, be it your customers or internal employees. Now, if I have to give an example, and I think Mr. Dominic Vijay has talked about, Mr. Sadaf Saeed has talked about it, chatbots, right? So there is an increasing adoption or deployment of chatbot solutions on by banks and insurance companies and financial services organizations, right? And the chatbots can engage the customers on website or social media channels to answer the most frequently asked FAQs, kind of, right? FAQs. In addition to that, some of our life and general insurance customers are also using chatbot for handling the claim management process, where the customers can file a claim, upload documents, and find out the status of the claim and all of those things, right? But when we implemented this for some of our insurance customers, we faced the backlash and pushback from the support center representatives, the support center employees, who saw the implementation or deployment of chatbot as an encroachment into their work. Okay, and which actually it's that's not true, because today what chatbot does is it automates the customer engagement for the mundane questions, or it automates the repetitive tasks. Okay, which frees up the support center representatives or the call center representatives to interact with the customers for more meaningful and complex questions. So, okay, so in that sense, the chatbot is actually augmenting or enhancing the function of the call center representative, and that is the message that had to be conveyed to them while deploying this new technology. And something similar, if we are on the customer side also, if we look at that, Now your eKYCs and video KYCs and all that actually can happen completely through technology, right? But while implementing this, we are frequently reminded that we are essentially trying to effect a behavioral change in the customer who previously visited a bank or worked with an agent. Okay, so now the younger generation, yes, they adopt the technology pretty soon, and they can very well self onboard themselves and create a CASA account, or maybe sign up for some kind of a loan through these digital channels. But that's not always the case for one generation, earlier generation, who may not be as comfortable self onboarding themselves through these digital channels. So the interfaces have to be the interface design has to be cognizant of the fact, and the interface has to be designed such that everybody who is trying to onboard themselves through this eKYCs, video KYCs, or these kind of channels, they get the same sense of ease and confidence, okay, as when they got while directly visiting a bank branch or working with an agent. So I think in addition to the technology, handling change management, okay, that's very important for successful digital transformation.
Yes, agree on that side that sometimes employees do have this, I think, insecurity that they can be replaced. I think we have been looking at for so long, like wherein it takes a lot of time to do this mindset change that we talk about, and the clear communication while we are implementing something new in the organization. So well agreed on to that side, but yes, people are again the part of the organization, so they have to be carefully taken care of. So I would like Mr. Vijay also to add in, if in case he would like to add in some of his insights onto this topic of transformation to this new technology development. So Mr. Dominic Vijay, if you there, if you can, if you like to add on to something.
Okay, Jyoti, can you just repeat that question, please?
Definitely. So the question is digital transformation is just more than the implementing new technology?
See, as I said, digital transformation is not only, technology, there are two things. One is the technology is just an innovation. Now, implementation, we can always do it. But how are you going to implementing? After implementing, how are you going to accept it? That's very important. Digital transformation, it is not just a technology. It is about the people, process, competency, culture, since they keep business running. So these are a few things. The short and script, if I to tell you for the query what you raised, these are a few things. That is, it's digital transformation is not only a technology. It is all about people, process, competency, and the culture, since they are the people who run the business. This is what I got to say on this.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Adding into your points, I would like to thank all our panelists for answering all the questions that we had listed, our audiences have listed for you. Thank you, Mr. Fouquet. Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for helping out to understand the technology better. Thank you, Mr. Sadaf Sai. So I think the last thing that we have left for today's session is that we have some of the questions that are being asked related to this particular session. So let's move to our Q&A session. So the questions are there onto the chat box if you like me to add on to. The first question, Mr. Tushar Srivastav, you have asked a question. The question is, are banking and finance companies not worried about security with so much technology dependency like data, not on private cloud, on premises, employees might not be in a secured environment?
Jyoti, let me answer.
This also was already answered during the. Actually, I put that question, but I think later on that was anyways answered. Yeah.
I know. I think it was covered during the session of the cyber security discussion that Mr. Vijay
I put
was
the
doing.
question prior to that. I put the question prior to that.
Right. So even if still you have something to ask in specific, we have all our speakers available for you. So if you like to add on to it.
No, ma'am, I think thanks.
Tushar, I just wanted to add one small thing to your question, what you have raised. See, in what happens in BFSI or NBFC or HFC, normally what happens, the importance is given to the financial transaction, the customer data, which is very crucial. So normally we work on a hybrid model. What we do is we build our own in-house data center, hold our core lending system within our data center. And if there's a space constraint, we move it on to do a co-location. But the application which is more facing towards the customer, like the basic applications, your multiple apps. Like for example, if I say I have around 15 to 20 applications which is more related to the customer and the kind of business operation, but not related to my core lending. Those can always be hosted on the cloud. In a segment like India, where we say the data center are hosted in India, but nobody is well aware that data centers is physically hosted in India, but the data, what are you going to secure, is within your Indian community, India cloud, that nobody's going to give you. Nobody's given it in writing as on today. And even the RBI or NHB, what they say is the original data of the customer should be within India, and the mirroring can always be kept out of India also. But any point of time, you should wait. So the customer's core data always normally resides within the data center of the any financial organization as on today, if I'm very precise. So we normally work on the hybrid model, both on the cloud as well as in-house, to secure the customer data. That's very important for us.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for answering the question of Tushar. I think he has got the relevant answer, but he was also satisfied with the discussion that you have been doing earlier on to the same topic. Right, so we have next question thrown by Ankita Shukla. So she is asking about the role of dispersed workforce in today's environment. So now you all three are open for it. So whosoever like to answer this question is most welcome.
I mean, if I can take it up, if I don't mind, if I can take up this. When you say dispersed workforce, is it the work which has been distributed among us in today's environment? See, today it's all more of a multi-skill. It's not that you should be very specific to one particular job. You got to be multi-skill, especially in the technology-driven organizations. You have to know everything. It's not that in our organization, what we do, we always do a cross-functional training, so that at any point of time, IT also can be in a position of supporting the operations or supporting your disbursement team or supporting the CPC team. So the workforce in our, I'm very clearly specifically talking about my organization, that we don't do a disperse of workforce. We see that we do more of a cross-functioning setup, so that everyone are well, like it's more like a BCP DR kind of thing. In those days, like when I started my career, there was something like pen-down strike. So when there used to be a pen-down strike, especially in the hotel industry, we had a separate BCP team which used to take over and support the guests. So it's something like that related to it. If my if my answer is right towards that particular query.
Mr. Saeed, Mr. Bouquet, if you like to add on to this dispersed workforce question.
Sure. So see, there is no choice, right? Especially after post-COVID, it's not whether you should have disposed workforce or not. I mean, it has to be there. I mean, there is no choice really. But there are a lot of tools, the online meeting tools, there are a lot of tools actually which facilitate disperse workforce to work towards common objective. So other than the psychological aspects of working by yourselves in your home in isolated manner, other than that aspect of it, in terms of the productivity as such, whatever is concerned, right? So I think that there is no change in the productivity, and that has been our experience also. Although almost 90% of the workforce in my organization is working remotely now for last almost a year. We are not really facing any challenges in the productivity levels or communication levels. So yeah, that has not been a problem really.
Great to hear your point of view on this, Mr. Fouquet. So let's move on to our next question, which has been asked by Soumya. So she has mentioned how this 360-degree approach in BFSI sector can lead to customer delight. I would like Mr. Said to answer this question, which is more related to BFSI sector customer delight approach. I hope you can address it. We are not able to hear you, Mr. Said. You are on mute.
Yeah, I'm not able to. Now I can speak. Yeah, great.
Okay.
I can basically, when you're looking at a 360-degree approach, you're looking at the whole ecosystem, all the stakeholders into the business, which includes not only the customers, it is also your employees, your investors, the bankers, the regulator, and the whole ecosystem that is involved. So I think for long, as far as our organization is concerned, industry is concerned, the stakeholders together and make sure that the interest of everyone is protected. I think regulator has been insisting on ensuring that, and that's why all these changes in rules of governance in terms of appointing auditors, changing auditor at frequent intervals, appointing independent directors, and all of that, that is there. And if you run your business like fairly, transparently, and you communicate your information correctly to the customer, it obviously leads to customer delight, because I think what digital transformation has done in the industry is that information is available with everyone, and there is no kind of secrecy anymore. So it has completely democratized the information sharing mechanism, and now at a click of a button, you can compare interest rate, you can compare, like for example, insurance plans. So you can compare what is X company is offering versus Y company is offering. So the only way to kind of compete and get hold of the customer is to ensure that you give more than what you can offer, in a sense, in terms of rate, because if there is a uniformity in rate, then only your service and the way you deal with the customer is gonna kind of attract a customer towards place. So I think the way the things are evolving, more and more it will be customer centric, and how people in BFSI industry cater to the customer, retain the customer, reach out to the customer, and service the customer. So it'll definitely lead to customer delight. I think it's already happening. It is moving from material kind of small discounts on loans to really offering loyalty points and giving benefits for the customer, which are like material in nature. So I think whole democratization of information and the approach of the BFSI industry, and with the level of competition that is there, it is leading to a kind of a 360-degree approach of ensuring that the customer delight is there.
Thank you, Mr. Said, for answering this question. And we agree on to this side that customer delight is going uh, onto the very, I would say, the side of the business wherein companies are also considering like a happy customer gives a lot of business. Let's just connect to the happy customer and give them a loyalty points. As you said, the reward system that has been running to the system. Okay, we received a message from Mr. Indranil Fouquet that he likes to drop in. We thank you, Mr. Fouquet, for you to have in this session. It was a pleasure discussion with you, and it has been a wonderful talk. And the things that you have talked about, I hope our audiences had good takeaway points from the session of the today. So you can definitely drop off. Though the session is on to the end only, we have only one last question to ask that we will be discussing on to the last minutes. If you like to add into something, we definitely are there, Mr. Fouquet, if you like to say something before you log off. Yeah, Mr. Fouquet, do you have something to share with us before you log off? I think he has already logged off onto that system. No worries. So I have this last question, and I think it goes with both Mr. Saeed and Mr. Dominic Vijay. And this is more about this unified communication in India post-COVID. So, what is the importance that is considered for unified communication in India post-COVID? So, I would like Mr. Vijay to answer this question first and then followed by Mr. Saeed. Mr. Vijay, you are on mute. I think now you can we are able to.
Okay. Basically, the importance of unified communications have been actually utilized post-COVID during the lockdown time, and this has really helped the business to regenerate from the process. There was no discontinuity in this. Suddenly, when there was a lockdown called off, we didn't know how to run a call center. We had to take out all the team, move to their houses. When they moved to their houses, now how are you going to support a customer? The customers never had a lockdown. So the only kind of thing was when we started talking to the customer, call center was accessible from the residence of the every agent, okay, through the basic connectivity. And that is one thing which played a role. And when you talk about unified communication, Microsoft has come out with a lot of products. Even Cloud Connect has come out with some products, which is really helped. I've been launching a new product called Click to Call, which is also part of unified communication. And we are in discussion with some vendors on cloud-based call center solutions. Okay, and to be very, very precise, Microsoft has got a wonderful unified communication system. Whether you talk about VC, you talk about audio calling, on the go, you speak to everyone, and you are in touch with the customers. Okay, it's the end of the day, unified communication has to be more stronger, and it has given a real edge for a business like us, especially during the moratorium time or during lockdown time, interacting with our internal clients. Our board meetings were communicated using, to be very frank, we use Teams, Microsoft Teams for connecting our board meetings, and that was recorded. And the regulator has accepted it. That's the best thing, because we were using a video conference of Polycom and multiple, where there was a huge cost involved in this. But gradually, unified communication is playing a very, very important role in not only the business point of view, even today everyone's personal life also. It's not that we are not available. Whether you talk about WhatsApp, you talk about Microsoft, you talk about Google also, Google Meet and all that. So unified communication has to be there. That will be there. That's the best way that's the only way you can communicate with your near and dear ones, your business partners, and your business runs on that. So that is what. And only thing, we should be a little bit supporting in improving our infrastructure to support the kind of technology what has been implemented. So we still have that rural sector facing the problem, lack of infrastructure, but that has to be a little bit upgraded. Otherwise, post-COVID, unified communication is played a major role. Well, personally speaking, we have done a great job during moratorium time, during lockdown time. Whether it is even my HR did an R&R engagement through unified communication through the teams. Today, all our things happens on unified communication. And thanks to the technology, and thanks even to Cloud Connect, they also come out with certain solutions which we are evaluating, and we should work with them together shortly. That's it from my side.
Thank you for your inputs on this, Mr. Vijay. Mr. Saeed, would you like to add in something onto this unified communication point?
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Dominic. I think one of the earliest lessons that we learned in commerce and business is unity in command. So, which is like you have to have one communication which should be going to the last mile to the customer and to your employees. I think that is very, very important to ensure that you achieve the desired result. And I think pandemic was one of such instance which we never imagined that it requires and also the operating method. So all of that needed to be communicated to everyone across the organization. So we have around 7,000 employees to communicate to them, and I'm sure many other organizations would have faced the same issue. So communicate to them in a unified communication method, and the message reaches to them is very, very important. Similarly, we had various circulars from government, from RBI coming in, telling us about how we can operate into the field. So very, very frequent updates, also communication with the client. So I think all of this is very, very important in terms of getting the message out there. And a unified communication system helps us to kind of keep the sanctity of the message. Otherwise, like Chinese whisper, you lose the message in between. So that is why I think it is important to have a system where you are able to reach out to all the people at one go, and the flow of the information is smooth and the information is consistent, so that you are able to kind of translate the message that you want to send. So it played a great role during the COVID environment, and I'm sure it people will only gain from it in during the normal scenarios also. It is imperative to have kind of unity in command if you are running a large organization which is widespread operation.
Thank you, Mr. Said, for sharing the thoughts. Yes, well agreed on that side, and I think I would say not only we can do this speedy communication, but we can also track the initial source of the communication. We can hold on to the information. We can, if present it in a very effective manner, if we have the right tools and the right solutions. And at the end, it will lead to customer satisfaction, our internal employee satisfaction as well. It's again like this unified communication is helping out the businesses really well in terms of the speedy communication and the clear communication, I would say. So now we all have the information on time. Before, it's like a day late, like the earlier postman services. So thank you so much to Mr. Vijay and Mr. Said for sharing your thoughts with us. With this, we bring today's webinar to a close. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all of you, like especially thanks to both of you and Mr. Fouquet for joining us as our speakers and panelists. And I would like to thank each and everyone who has been a part of this particular webinar, especially the audiences, and they definitely had some takeaways because we talked about a lot of things during this session, like not only this BFSI concept of digitization, but also the cybersecurity that we have covered up, and how this data integration and voice integration has helped the business communication, and how this cloud platform is evolving and helping out the business. So I think it has been a wonderful session for our audiences. Thank you again for our speakers to give us so many insight onto the things. And with this, we close our sessions at this level. And I hope every question is answered of our audiences.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Thank you, Mr. Said. And again, thanks to Mr. Fouquet, who has already gone for some of the urgent stuff. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, participant, for being there.